balance, I think, has actually been good. The flavor, the initial design sort of ideas, I feel like has been very, very good. And of course, the art has been incredible. But it is harder to appreciate those things when it feels like the final product we receive is not able to compete. Welcome to episode 515 of Concede, our Hearthstone podcast dedicated to making the competitive side of the game more accessible to you. It is Thursday, September 18th, 2025 in the evening. Coming to you from Nomergon, Ohio, it's me, Edelweiss. From North Rand, Massachusetts, we have Wicked Good.
Hi.
From Teldrassil, California, we have Megasa.
Hello.
And from all around the world, we have you, dear listeners. This week's episode is brought to you by our producers, Number Theory, Kresh, Beef Squatch, David P., Jeremy T., Bottlecaps, Grumpy Monk, The Burger Club, Kirk Regan, May, NY Kiwi, Spine, Proby1, and by our patrons of the week, Torby Flenderson and Dabik. You can go to patreon.com/coinconcede to get perks like a thank you at the top of the show, bonus post-show content, early access to new episodes, one-on-one coaching sessions, and help support the show in the process. If you'd like to support the show but cannot do so monetarily, please consider leaving us a 5-star review on your podcast feed of choice, as it always helps other people find the show. So, Life and Ladder, I admit, I have not been doing a ton of Hearthstone post-casting the Masters Tour, because
that kind of counts as a lot.
Yeah.
You kind of OD'd on Hearthstone, and you kind of deserve a break after that, I think.
I lucked out. I didn't even get the 2-hour-long match on day one. That was pretty brutal. Yeah, Starship DK Mirror. That'll do you.
That'll take a minute. Yeah.
Yeah, I turned in on day one during that, looked at it, and was like, nah, I'll try again later. So I watched a ton of it on day 2 and day 3 and enjoyed it greatly. But day 1, I was like, nah, the casters are a stuck audience, but I am not.
Yeah.
Day 1 was a little cursed. But surprisingly, by day 3, right, when we got to the top cut, there was like one of everything that had been entered into the event, right? Like no archetypes had been eliminated as far as I know. Yeah, I think that's right. Which is quite unexpected. And most of the weekend we dodged those mirrors. There were still a few like, this is a quest warrior versus a D, right? Like, not to say there weren't long games, there definitely were, but at least there were not a ton of Starship DK mirrors, or things would have run even longer. I think we went until 8:30 on Sunday, but
yeah. It was very long because I had promised one of the twins that I would watch the Spawn movie with her in the evening on Sunday, which, by the way, don't. It apparently won some sort of special effects awards in like 1997, which was 2 years before Star Wars Episode 1. Mm-hmm. And yeah, it looked like it won awards in 1997. But it is not a good movie at all. But I promised her I would watch it with her because that was all she wanted to do. And I was like, I had like the broadcast on my laptop like next to me with the sound off. So I saw what was going on. But it was like, yeah, this is going a while.
Indeed. Yeah. And yeah, I turned 32.
Yay!
So
happy birthday.
Yay. I don't
well,
think I
can't play the happy birthday song because we'll get sued. So, that's what you get. But yeah.
Well, thank you. And yeah, I was playing a little bit of Hollow Knight. My Steam Deck is still having issues, so I need to contact support again. But also been playing Sifu, and because this is what I do. I play things 3 to 5 years late. But Sifu also quite good. I'm pretty bad, but that's not that surprising, I guess. Yeah. I like finally beat the second boss, and I was like, well, I beat it, but I'm 50 years old. I can't buy like most of the upgrades anymore. I think I have to try again without dying so much. Those unfamiliar, in Sifu, every time you die, you age. And if you die a lot in succession, it's like you age 1 year, and then 2 years, and then 3 years, and then 4, and then 5, right? It just keeps ticking up. And if you exceed every 10 years, not like number of deaths, but age-wise, your character, I think, like loses some either health or structure, which is their like how well can you hold your stance, but gains damage, which is kind of funny. But if you exceed 80 years, you lose and have to start the area again.
I will say I was about to get very offended because I'm 46, and then I realized you were talking about a system in the game and not actually like, oh, 50 is a terrible age. So I will allow it.
So, so that's, let's see, 20 to, so 30, 40, 50. So that's 3 damage boosts, but 3 structure debuffs. And also they like age cap some of the upgrades you can get. So it's like, once you have exceeded this age, you cannot purchase this like character upgrade anymore. And I was looking at all the stuff that I could spend experience on, and I was like, I can't get anything anymore. I think I have to try and get good and beat this, dying fewer times.
That's an accurate depiction of being almost 50. Yeah, I would say so.
It seems like the thing you want to strive for is like not advancing your age by like more than 5 years if you can help it for each area, and there's 5 areas. Yeah.
I guess I'm not that old because I did finish Hollow Knight finally over the weekend. So
nice.
Yeah, so then I started Silksong, but I think I'm in the same boat with my Steam Deck that I think my left bumper is just completely like bought the farm.
Uh-oh.
And I mean, I set it up so I'm using like one of the back like grip buttons instead of the shoulder button, and that's generally working fine. Like it's not that different, but it's I was noticing the map was getting harder and harder, and then today when I was playing it on the train, it was not mapping at all. So thankfully it's the map one and not like the I need to use the right bumper to do attacks thing, because that's a lot worse if that's not working.
That would be bad.
That would be very bad. Yeah. So yeah, I took the one of the kids to Retro World Expo in Connecticut this weekend. We had a really good time, and she came home with a Kingdom Hearts promotional poster, like one of the ones that they sell in game stores. There was one place, or not selling game stores, like they hang in game stores. There was one place that was selling a whole bunch of these different posters, and it was $40, and she's like, oh, that's too rich for my blood. I'm like, you need to have that, and I will buy that for you because that's important for you to have. Like, the kid is like one of the biggest Kingdom Hearts fans that I've ever seen, and like it's something that like you're never going to see something like that again, right? So it's like, okay, it's probably like 2 foot square. It's really big. Like we had to go walk back to the car to put it in the trunk because like there was no way to roll it up. It's just like thick enough cardboard that we're not rolling it because we probably damage it. So we're like walking back, like a wind bursts and like the thing starts like taking off on us as we're walking back to the car. Like, but we got it home safely. We just need to find a frame for it because that's the kind of thing you probably need to frame. But yeah, and I made some poor choices in Hearthstone this week. I got to the point where I was playing a bunch of Death Knight, and I got to the point where I was seeing so many warriors and demon hunters, like starship demon hunters, that I decided I was tired of it and I wanted to play Hex. Because I was tired of losing to 45 starships and tired of losing to testing dummies. And as was preordained by making such a decision, I didn't see any of those after I made the change to Shaman. Like, of course. Of course I didn't. Like, that's just science. That as soon as you make a change like that, it's just not going to work. So today I just switched back to Protoss Priest because if I'm going to be annoyed, at least I'll be annoyed with a good portrait. But I'm still haven't made it to legend. I think I'm just not playing. I'm not playing particularly well, and there's just a lot of. It feels kind of rock paper scissors-y, at least at the ranks that I'm playing. Like at least when I was playing the Death Knight, there was just like a lot of. I don't want to say hard counters, but a lot of unfavored matchups because a lot of people were just playing whatever they can play into the Death Knight. And I'm someone who is not like allergic to long matchups, but like I don't want to sit there for 20 minutes watching somebody build a starship. Like it's just not fun. And like even like the few like mages that I've run into just have like just managed to get so much armor, and then it's just a cavalcade of BS that they managed to unleash after that. It's just like I'm not interested in that. At least want something. I like again, we're at the point in the meta where I'm getting turned into an aggressive player, or at least like as aggressive as Protoss Priest is. And because I just don't have the patience to watch somebody play with their food for 20 minutes. And
now you know how I feel.
Well, I don't feel like I don't feel like there's really an edge I can get as a control player in these matchups. Maybe there is if I was more dedicated to it, but like normally I will grind ladder with a control deck if I feel like there's an edge that I can get, either because I have something that will counter a lot of what I'm seeing in the meta, or I just know the matchups better. But there's just so much variance in those matchups, and a lot of it just kind of comes down to like what your Fire Act decides to do in some cases, or like what if you're playing Kill Jaden, which I wasn't, but like what your Kill Jaden's going to decide to give you. I've just at least I'd rather just play Protoss Priest and just at least get out of those games quickly if I'm not going to be able to get an edge in control in the longer matchups. So.
I feel like if ladder were just to the decks that were in the Masters Tour, I would like it better. But in general, Pockets Hunter has been sort of scratching the itch of being interesting, right? Something that one can just sort of focus on and be like, well, I'm going to learn how to do this. And,
yeah,
and
that's
enjoy
not
that.
easy. Yeah.
It is very versatile. but yes, that also means you can lose in a lot of different ways.
Well, in life, I had mentioned last week my husband had just gotten surgery that day on a tendon in his elbow. He is doing well, recovering. He is also mostly doing well, being patient with it. He is not a patient person on this kind of way, but he's been doing his best to really rest it, keep it elevated, and recovering pretty quickly, I think. So although he's over the past couple days like, I can do things, and I'm like, okay, not the dishes though, because you'll get it wet. You can't get it wet. I was like, trust me, I would rather you did the dishes because it's one of my least favorite chores, but I will do it and should do it. Usually we split that one.
So we're living under Gremlins rules. Don't get it wet. Don't feed it after midnight.
In games, I watched a lot of the Masters Tour over the weekend. We were just kind of hanging out on the couch because he couldn't really do anything, and I didn't really want to do anything. So I watched a lot of the Masters Tour. I played some Timberborn, which is the post-apocalyptic beaver city building game, sort of survival game, where you like build dams to manage the water because the humans destroyed the earth and themselves, and so there's like droughts. But if you can manage the water correctly, then you can keep everything irrigated, and you can make your beavers happy, and it's very cute, but you can also kill your beavers. I managed to stabilize them, but that's been a fun thing to play when I want to make sure that I can't lose without reloading a save, unlike in Hearthstone.
Does that have a Mac client?
Yeah, it's on Mac.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay. I know I own that. I need to make sure Maureen is aware that that's in one of our game libraries, because she is a strategy game fan and also a big fan of beavers. So
yes, and these are very cute ones. And so I'll actually more than usual be like, okay, I have to even though my beavers are okay, I have to restart because they need to be happy. They deserve to be happy, and right now they're not as happy as they could be. It's definitely something where your first settlement like if you play on the easier difficulties, it's not that hard, but it takes a while to learn kind of like what's optimal and what the possible pitfalls are. So in terms of Hearthstone, I've tried a few things, but I keep landing back at Fire Rogue. That's kind of been the sweet spot of like working well for me, but also fun for me. Still sort of tootling toward Legend. I have seen a few interesting things, although most of them have been variations on what if we put the Neutralax, Fire Ysera, Ziliax package in other things, just in anything. So I saw an Alonius Druid that was running that, and they did beat me. I don't know if that's correct, but the fact that it is like arguably correct does tell you something. That is not like the Alonius Druids that were bought to the Masters Tour, but I did put a link to, I didn't get that list, but I did put a link to the replay. I also faced a Quest Priest and lost to it, but I wouldn't get too excited. The list does not have a great win rate, although it's also a very small sample size. All right, I did get that list from friending them, so that is also in the show notes. And I lost to a Peddler Demon Hunter, which Peddler, for anyone who doesn't remember, is a 6-mana, 6/6 rush demon, death rattle, reduce the cost of a random minion in your hand by 6. So what if we reduced Fyrak or Ziliax or Illidari Inquisitor, to be fair. They've also got Window Shopper, because if you reduce Window Shopper, that's not bad. And return policy in order to redo all this. So it has a 59% win rate over 78 games. It looks like it was peaked by Homie. I put that list in. It is running Zai the Incredible. 5-mana, 6/4, Battlecry, copy the left and rightmost cards in your hand.
I guess if they're free.
And there's also one Wisp in for it because it has Elise, obviously, and Xavius. The neutral package mostly is in here, although it doesn't have Ysera. And so therefore it doesn't have Neutralax. So those were some of the more interesting things that I saw. I have not been brave enough to try the Discover Hunter yet, but I definitely went back and I had managed to miss a lot of Pockets games on day 2 and earlier on day 3 just because like I would get interrupted right when he was about to go on by something. So I did go back and watch some of the Discover Hunter games, and they are wild. Not literally wild as in the
no, they were standard,
wild, but but they were very varied and a lot going on. It turns out that if you get the Mixologist potion that gives health to your minions and you just repeat that a lot, then they never die, and that's helpful. And also there was one game where he got the discount off Grifta. He took that preferentially over the damage, and then he just made his whole hand, including his Ziliax, free. He got 9 discounts on his hand. And he said in the post-show interview that at that point, he just wanted to see how far he could get things discounted. He was like, I wasn't even worried that much about lethal. I just wanted to get everything free.
There was one point where Sottle and Raven were talking about setting mini games for yourself in that deck, and it sounds like one of them, like, you know, you've already kind of got everything set up, so you're going to see what kinds of little achievements you can set for yourself that you can tick off the list.
And he did win that game, if I remember correctly.
Yeah. He doesn't seem like the kind of person who would go achievement hunting in lieu of winning a game in a tournament. So yeah.
No, especially in the day 3 when you do not get a loser's bracket.
Well, we are going to talk about the Masters Tour, and we have some news that we're going to talk about as well. So let's get into that.
Gadgets and Gazette always gets the scoop.
Okay, so a couple of things, and then we have a balance patch that we need to talk about. But before we get there, there is a show match that is going to be held on the 29th. So it's going to be an international show match. This is apparently being hosted by China, or at least like sponsored by China. So you're going to have LVGE, Chu Chu, Lotheb, and ML Yang Ming from China, and then representing, I guess, Europe, because they're all from Europe, you have Tice, Fury Hunter, Bunny Hopper, and Gabby. And I believe the the prize is like a really sick car.
Yeah. It's been a while since we've had one of those.
But yeah, there's going to be a $56,000 prize pool. And oh yeah, a Hearthstone themed Yang Wang U9 supercar. I can't find a picture of that now, but it is impressive.
Mean?
It is an impressive looking car. I will assure you. You're just gonna have to use your imagination. But yeah.
It looks, it's the kind of car where you're like, that looks very fast. I don't know anything about this car. I just Googled it, and it's snazzy. It looks pretty snazzy.
It is very fancy. So that's something that you'll be able to watch. Twitch drops will be active, so you will be able to get 2 Lost City of Ungoro packs for watching this. And yeah, that should be an interesting event. I guess it's NetEase in China. They've tended to hold events like this every so often, and we've missed these since China was. It's been about a year since China came back, I suppose, but we haven't really had a lot of those since China was taken off of the Hearthstone servers. But now that they're back, we're getting these things again, which is pretty cool. So and if you watch those, then maybe we'll get more of those. We also, they haven't posted yet, but Hearthstone does now have an official Blue Sky account. Hopefully they'll be posting soon. I know these things take time to get set up, but at least they have reserved the name, which is something, and set it up with a banner and an icon. So there's somebody there. Hopefully this means that we will be able to get official announcements on Blue Sky. There are some folks like Silent Nick who have been, and Hearthstone Top Decks, of course, that have been doing really good work on Blue Sky, spreading that message, but having an actual official presence on Blue Sky will be something that is very much appreciated for those of us who do not like going to that other site that shall not be named. Go give them a follow, because maybe if they get as many follows as we can get them, then that'll incentivize them to post as well. So they have about 200 followers now. I'm pretty sure we could get that a little bit higher. So there are some changes to the design team. It looks like Aleko, we're getting word, left Blizzard back in July. He's now a lead designer for some sort of a game company in Germany. So we wish him well. And there is Bionic Door is a new addition to the initial design team. They've been someone who has been fairly well known, I believe, in Reddit circles, if I'm remembering correctly. Or possibly YouTube. I'm not sure. Like, I'm not familiar with them, but they've been around, and they are somebody who is going to be bringing some new blood into the design team, which will be exciting. And hopefully in about a year we'll get to see some of the things that they've worked on, because that's not being snarky. The team actually does work a year out. So anything that they're working on now, we're not going to see for at least a year. But yeah, so wish them well and welcome them to the team. And then we get to the patch notes from this week. So these were kind of dropped with no teaser for reasons that we will get into on Wednesday. So there are all buffs and no nerfs that are part of these balance changes. And really it's that there's some battlegrounds changes and then like 1 or 2 bug fixes. The dev comment is probably worth discussing in and of itself. And I will give a little bit of background in terms of, like, we get some previews of these things in the creator program, in the creator Discord, and we actually did get a more involved version of this in the creator Discord. And this is something I urge them to post something along these lines in the actual patch notes for a wider audience, just because looking at these changes was going to be very baffling if there's not a lot of context to what they're trying to do. So the dev comment reads, we'd like to share an update on the current state of Hearthstone and what to expect from this patch. The data shows a relatively balanced meta with no dominant power outliers or play patterns demanding nerfs. At the same time, the Day of Rebirth mini set didn't land as we hoped. This patch focuses on targeted buffs to help a few of those cards better realize their potential. Some of these changes support quest decks while also opening up new options across other archetypes, where it's more details below. We understand that many of you were hoping for bigger changes. We've seen a lot of feedback about the strong neutral package of Fyrakk, Elise, Naralex, and Ysera, and we'll be keeping a close eye on them moving forward. We've also continued to hear suggestions to buff nearly every new quest that become competitive archetypes. However, as we've shared before, too many competitive quests in the long term can lead to a metagame that isn't fun or healthy. More broadly, we believe future expansions are a better place to bring community feedback to life rather than trying to overhaul the current set through balance patches. We fell short of our goal of introducing enough new competitive options this expansion. As we look ahead to the next expansion and beyond, we're keeping your response to this set in mind and are using it to help shape the future of Hearthstone. There's a lot there.
Indeed.
Where would we like to start? Because there's a lot of different places where we could.
I feel like for me the place to start is them saying like we've seen how too many quests being volatile can lead to, you know, bad stuff. I feel like that confirms the allegations of designing from a place of fear. You know, I get where that's coming from. This has been, you know, the only set to like truly bomb, but when you have the sentiment of like both Great Dark Beyond and Emerald Dream had their moments, but sort of needed buffs to have their moments, I think it sort of feels bad, right? We've had multiple sort of release days of feeling like not that much is like viable here, and that's really not something that you want.
Yeah.
Buffs, and like they needed buffs, and they also needed a lot. There's been a lot of nerfs of last year's cards, that with Bang and
Right.
Perils cards.
Yeah, exactly. Like the decks that had win conditions, right? Like specific class-based individualized win conditions got hit a lot, right? And I think it's this weird thing of like, yeah, we've had a lot of balanced, like technically balanced metas, and some that have been good and fun to play. But I think what's not accounted for is the fact that we've multiple times sort of felt like, oh, I wanted to have an expansion launch and only a few cards are like making it through, or like by the time after a bunch of balanced stuff has happened, like it doesn't even feel like new cards in the same way anymore, if that makes sense.
You kind of, the excitement that you get with a new expansion, like you only get one shot at that, and like sometimes you can get like a balance patch that'll kind of tweak some things, but like, you know, you just spend a decent chunk of money, right, on a whole bunch of packs. Like you're looking for a new video game, effectively, when you are paying, you know, $80 is the cost of a new AAA video game now, right? Like assuming that you're getting the big bundle, and you're kind of expecting a new video game, and you're getting not that. And like we've had sets like this in the past, like Boomsday, the Boomsday project, similarly bombed, no pun intended for once. Just because that was Ziliax and that was it, right? When that set launched, it ended up having more of an impact later after a rotation, and then Magnetic did start to become a thing, but when it launched, it was really just Ziliax and that was it. And original Ziliax. It's hard to recapture that feeling when you kind of come back and like everything's the same and nothing's really changed. And I think the fact that it's happened for 3 sets in a row is also causing a crisis of confidence. Right.
And again, I want to emphasize, like, we have not had something like this expansion before, right? Rastakhan was the closest thing.
Yeah, or Boomsday, yeah.
Right, yeah. But I don't remember Boomsday being like that bad.
It was Ziliax and Giggling Inventor were basically the only cards that saw any play out of that expansion when it was launched.
I remember Magnetic being all right.
No, that was after rotation. It was after rotation that we started seeing Dr. Boom warrior and the magnetic, like the bomb hunter and stuff like that. That was all after rotation.
Got it. Right. Which, maybe we're just experiencing a similar thing here, right? That like these things will have their moment next year.
Which is cold comfort, but yeah.
Yeah. I think what it is like it's that repetition again, like this is the worst one, but I think if like Great Dark Beyond had been this, and then they had the StarCraft mini set, and then Emerald Dream, and then this had been the power level of Great Dark Beyond, where like it needed some help, but it was doable. I feel like we would be in a different place, mentally, because at least the trajectory would be upwards. But I think there's a lot of fear with it being the direction that it has been, because it sort of feels like things are going down and down, and it makes us have a lack of faith that like, oh God, what if they just continue on this path and, the last one of the year doesn't hit and we've had an entire deflationary year, right? I mean, it almost gets conspiratorial.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think the problem is that we're hearing from them that they have learned from this and that they're going to improve with the next sets. And like, I mean, I will say, knowing some of the devs, I believe them when they say that, or at least I believe that they think that they've figured it out and they're going to address it, and that, the next things are coming. But it's also like, we're not hearing from the team, or really from the game director, right? Which, I mean, again, yes, I know, but it's a meme at this point, but I'm still gonna say it, right? That what were the lessons learned, and what kinds of things, without giving away anything from the next expansion, which I don't want them to, but just like, what kinds of things have you learned from this, and what are we going to be correcting in the future? Like, Mark Rosewater is the lead designer of Magic, has been the lead designer of Magic for however many millions of years. Does a State of Magic retrospective at the end of every standard year, and goes through the sets and talks about, like, some of the highs and some of the lows, and he's generally pretty introspective, and he's honest with, these are the things that we did, this is what we were hoping was going to happen, this is how it actually landed, sometimes it's a success, sometimes it's a failure, and this is the kinds of things that we've learned from this to improve how we're approaching the next sets. We're not hearing that from the design team, and I think that would probably help, assuming that those answers were satisfactory, which maybe they wouldn't be, and then it would be worse. To be fair, there's always a risk there. But I think that hearing that we're going to get better is kind of like, well, we've heard that for a year now. And which is, and also I should say, as we're going through this is not to say that there's not fun to be had with this set and with the game right now, right? Like, this is not to say that if you are enjoying the game and where it is right now, that you are somehow wrong or feeling bad, or should feel bad about that. There's a lot of different experiences. Not everyone, I mean, you're probably self-selecting to some extent. If you're listening to a podcast like this, you're probably playing this at a rate that is above average, right? And you are competitively minded. But it doesn't necessarily mean that if you're enjoying where this meta is, or you're finding things to like about it or whatever, that you're wrong, because that's not the case. But I think that there's a been there, done that feeling about the way that the last couple of sets have gone, and it's unclear what the way out of this is. But it sounds like from this that this is not something they can buff their way out of, right? And if they're not going to be able to, then trying could actually make things worse, because they are designing for the cards around where they were a year when, we just talked about how they design a year out. They're designing where the cards are at the time that they were designed, they started doing initial design. If they make these cards significantly different, they may not have enough time to test what's about to come out against them, might make things not hit again. It's kind of a self-fulfilling prophecy, and at some point you have to kind of break the cycle.
Yeah, I think in this case, it's frustrating in some, like, I sympathize with, and to some extent, I do feel that, like, I wish they had just buffed a bunch more things in this patch. And to be clear, I think the buffs that they did make, like, I don't disagree with any of these. Not all of them are necessarily going to be impactful, but a few of them definitely seem like they make the card quite a bit better. We'll talk about those in a little bit. But they can't super overhaul cards once they're out. They can tweak them. They can make numbers, but they can't sort of completely change how they work. I mean, they do every once in a while, like Raza, but they can't do that for, like, large numbers of cards, really. And still, like, that takes away dev resources from the next expansions. And especially, like, if they were going to do big buffs, it should have been earlier. I understand why they didn't do it earlier. If they were going to do it, then that kind of was where it needed to happen, because at this point, it does make it difficult. Like, I think it is true that it does make it difficult for them in later expansions. It's frustrating because it feels like and I don't know whether there was, like, disagreement in the team about this. Like, we don't have insight into that, but that we made quests, but we're also afraid of quests at the same time. I think that they are listening to feedback, but people definitely disagree on, like, which community feedback to listen to, because there certainly were a lot of people who were very mad about Stormwind quests. But I think the narrative that, like, therefore quests are a big problem, I personally don't agree with that, and I actually loved Stormwind. Were there things that needed to be nerfed in Stormwind? Absolutely. Or that were a problem in Stormwind? Absolutely. But I had a great time. There were people who had a great time with it, and there are people who are enjoying this meta. I do think it's worth pointing out also that, like, for more casual players, not having huge changes all the time is good. But I think the place where you want there to be big changes is rotation, and new expansions, right? Like, that's where you want everything to kind of shake up all at once, and then things settle a bit, so that people who like more settled metas have a chance to have a little bit of a more settled meta. But then things change when people are gearing up and paying money for it to change, and that's not something that we really had right now. One other thing I want to say, this is a straw man for most people, but I have seen the occasional post that I completely understand losing trust, that when they say, oh, the next expansion will fix it, that can be hard to just trust. But it's not like anybody, including the bean counters, doesn't want the game to be fun, right?
Yeah.
I think there may be disagreement as to what makes the game fun, and even if we agree on that, how do we make the game go there, right? I mean, if we think about the fact that there are $100 million movies that are terrible, and it's not like anyone who made that movie wanted it to be terrible. There were just structural things that went wrong, and also, like, it's harder than it seems, right? So this is not anybody, like, sabotaging, or we only want to make money, we don't want to make the game fun. The game makes money only if it's fun. So I know that's a straw man for most people, but I did just want to put out, like, it's not on purpose. There may be structural things, like there may be a lack of resources for the devs, like maybe they just kind of, like, ran out of time on quests. Maybe there's not nearly enough testing, although, it's impossible to do as much testing as players do, but maybe there could be more. We don't really know exactly what the inside development looks like, but yeah, those were some things I wanted to point out. I guess also we've ended up with really strong neutrals because nothing synergistic, not nothing, but not that many things that are really synergistic in classes are strong enough. As I found myself thinking about the conversations we had about packages and synergy in some past episodes, and I'm not a deck builder, but I think I might fall a little bit different than kind of where we landed in those conversations, and that maybe packages, like, yes, packages tend to fail or succeed together, but you don't need every package to succeed. You just need a variety of packages in a set, and then each class to not have several duds in a row. And there often is, like, one class that happens to get several duds in a row, and that's disappointing. And ideally, you have those packages, like, be flexible so they can go in different kinds of decks, like the Discover package, and they can be supported later. And, not every package can be the Discover package, but I think we'd see less of the same neutrals if we had more other directions that felt strong enough. Like, or if those neutrals were, like, from a class. Like, I don't hate the Neralex Fyrak Ysera package. Obviously not. I'm playing Fyrak Rogue. and I'm enjoying Fire Rogue, but it is frustrating when it's in every deck, including Alonius Druid, because the other things are not as strong.
And like, I don't think there is a balance problem with Elise, Narrowlex, Fyrak. These are not too powerful cards. It's just that there aren't class-based win conditions, and I think part of what we hoped with quests is, since they historically have been built-in win conditions, is that more of them would be like Quest Warlock is right now, and we would have some more sort of diversified win conditions instead of, you know, what has become colloquially known as Dragon Slop, right? You know, it's gotten to the point even where I'm just like, I mean, if Fyrak DK kind of came out of nowhere, how many things can we just do this in, right? You mentioned the Spirit Peddler deck in Demon Hunter that has like Fyrak and Inquisitor and stuff. So yeah, it's just at this point where like, well, things have been balanced for all of these sets that have been varying degrees of underwhelming. The balance, I think, has actually been good. The flavor, the initial design sort of ideas, I feel like has been very, very good.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, the art has been incredible. But it is harder to appreciate those things when it feels like the final product we receive is not able to compete.
I would actually kind of argue that the neutral problem that we're in is kind of a function of packages also, though, because like,
well, because if they fail,
well, because the cards that we're playing are independently strong, right? Like, you don't, like, yeah, you have to build your deck around Elise, but you don't have to, like, other than like the cost thing, which is not a particularly difficult deck building challenge. And those are also kind of feeding to each other, right? I mean, part of it is that because you're playing Elise, you need expensive cards, and the best expensive cards are neutral. So that's kind of like it is a little bit of a synergy issue too. But like, the cards that we're playing are independently strong without needing a ton of synergy, and we're not getting those as much in the classes. And the problem with that is that when we're concentrating that power I'm using power is very relative right now, right? Like, we are not in a high power meta. I am not saying that these, like, if you put these up against some of the cards that were really strong a couple years ago, we would laugh, right?
mm-hmm.
But the fact that they are kind of the strongest things that you can do, and they are also just kind of don't need anything else to be good, right? Then that's why we're seeing a lot of them. And we saw this with the Titans, right? The Titans were in every deck. I mean, they were different Titans, but there were Titans in every deck for a year and a half, because those were independently strong cards in most of the classes that didn't need anything else to be good, right? And so they don't, it is kind of because the packages are failing and the neutrals are the ones that they're designing to not need that synergy, then we're seeing these neutrals. And that doesn't mean that there's not fun to be had again, but the problem with the neutrals being so prevalent is when you play this game a lot, you see them over and over again, and it makes every game feel similar because everyone's doing the same types of things and getting away from, like, that's, like I said, I was playing Shaman just so I could play Hex, right? Because that was something that is a class identity thing, effectively. It's the only class that can do anything about death rattles at this point, for the most part. I mean, you can run Royal Librarian, but, I have my dignity. That's something that there's not a reason to go into one class or another other than, one or two cards. And so everything else is kind of feeling the same because you're seeing the same cards over and over again.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think it's a balance, right? Because we would also be saying less of the neutrals if the packages were stronger.
Sure. Yeah.
So I think you want kind of both. It's fun to have decks kind of, there was like Good Stuff Shaman a couple of years ago. Like, nobody could figure out what to call it other than Good Stuff Shaman.
Yeah.
having those sometimes is fun, but then even within the classic, it's samey if it's just like, well, this card is just really good, so we always run it. Like, I think you want a balance of some cards that are just good on their own and some cards that are good in a package, and just hoping that those packages can combine with each other or are just like, there's enough of them that are balanced and good. All of this is easier said than done, obviously, but
I mean, but you can, I think you can, if you look at, and not all the time are win condition things legendaries, but often legendaries sort of direct you in terms of like, okay, this is my win condition. And if we think of older ones, right, we think of Sif, we think of Odin, right, as like, this is a card I play, and then I'm working towards a particular game plan that like I will win in this way. Aulonius is like that, right?
Yeah.
It's the one that we still have. Death Knight doesn't have anything, at least not on that power level, right? Eliza Goreblade, long term, like there's much more of this singular powerful thing that may get you there eventually, like Headless Horseman, Kerrigan, Ursak. You can do powerful stuff with Exarch, right? But like, what are we Exarching? We're Fyrak or Isera. High Cultist Heron, a powerful single turn play, but if that doesn't get you there, it's over. So Demon Hunter, similar, right? We already talked about Druid with Aulonius. Low kind of was that, but in a problematic way. I think Hamul could be that, but has not managed to sort of have staying power, keeping up with the rest of the meta. We have seen people messing around with Sky Mother Aviana, but of course that's randomized. Exarch Niall is kind of in between, right? It totally transforms the way you play in a very interesting way, but it is not exactly a win condition. It just like powers powerful stuff like Grifta and Bob and Tidepool people, and right. Plush was one, and then because of the way the imbue worked, is no longer. Mage
Skyla was one at one point, right?
Yeah. Saroon kind of was, but like Elemental Mage has not been able to keep up. Forbidden Sequence, I think, is just like too random, right? Yeah. And a little too slow.
And Asina probably is supposed to be, but like 20 random damage at the point in the game where you get to play her is just never good enough with the size of the minions that are on the board at the time.
Like, if we had Bran reliably, maybe. But because Colossus exists, you sort of may as well, if you're going to work to something like that, just do Protoss for Colossus. Linessa, right? I think the fact that Drunk Paladin made it into the MT and like got second place, I guess is testament that Linessa could still do things and is sort of like waiting for something to do things, right?
Yeah, and that's a card that I think can be frustrating to see on the other side, but that enables different exciting things. And, I don't necessarily, I don't want like a whole meta of Colossus mages. Colossus mages is like one of, people on Reddit hate Colossus mage, and I understand why. But I think the meta has just shifted so much to grindy things with just kind of a piece together win condition, which Fyrak is. I mean, there was a game in the Master Tour where Fyrak did not do 4 damage face. There was another game in the Master Tour where Fyrak got shutter blocked and did 64 damage face, which is an average of over 20.
That was
per
crazy.
Battlecry.
Both of those were insane.
Both of those were insane. Now, those are obviously the outliers, right? But it's not a Sif. I think it's also like there's hardly any aggro. Aggro DH is putting up good stats, but it is really frustrating to play. I have tried playing it. I have had good results with aggro DH before. You run into so many Death Knights and it's just so dispiriting even when you win. Like, and I know I'm biased on this, but I think aggro helps a healthy meta because it keeps the greed level down a little bit. And it also makes the OTK decks have to engage a little bit. So then it's safer to have them.
Yeah.
So
You know what it feels like is like usually we have this tug of war, this push and pull between like, well, there's some combo decks that, keep the control in check. There's aggro that keeps the combo in check, loosely, right? And depending on various power levels, they go up and down. But we've sort of been squeezing and squeezing and squeezing to the point that like there's no true, I mean, we were saying all weekend at the Masters Tour, there's no true aggro, certainly not an aggro lineup, right? That people would feel comfortable bringing, such that they like aggressive, counter druid lineup was like Drunk Paladin and Quest Warlock.
Fyrak DK, which is not an aggro.
Yeah, right. And like, some people were trying the Shutterblock Shaman as kind of an aggressive thing because sometimes you play a pair of 3/3s or 5/4s right on turn 3, and that's pressure. Yeah, the Quest Paladin was the most like, oh, this is a real like win condition. It builds, and it actually landed in a place balance wise initially that I think was good, but then because people did not feel positively about how it lined up to things that were going long, it got hit, right? Look, I don't know if I would like feel good about seeing, Quest Paladin regularly, but I do sort of feel sad that it's not around like at all for me. Like
it does depend on your rank, but yeah.
But I think a lot of it is just like feeling like you have a puncher's chance in any given matchup, right?
Mhm.
And like the way that Quest Paladin played out, if you didn't have like your choices were go under it or just you would get run over because there was just no way to there was not really any way to fight back on it. Like if it didn't have the rush, right? I think maybe you could get there. The fact that it has a lot of rush, so it's able to control the board with the progressively larger and larger Murlocs, and that there's really nothing you can do about the quest buff to interact with it. And you can't really even remove the boards because they're just going to make more because everything makes 3 or 4 Murlocs that all get buffed up by +3, +3, +4, +4, +5, +5. That's also demoralizing from the other direction to play against. Like if you're playing as any sort of a slower deck, it's like, well, why my decisions didn't matter in that game. And that's I think the thing that it's not a balance thing, but it is the thing I wonder about is how much they value how much fun a deck is to play against. Right?
Well, I think that's really hard.
It is hard. It is hard, which is why I'm not doing it. But
the exact kind of deck that you're describing, that's what I hate to play against. The deck where I cannot get to a point where I have some inevitability going. And what frustrates me in a meta is when, and I don't think it should be like, oh, just from the mulligan, I know that I'm going to get this, except for in extreme draws, right? Of course, there's, and if we're Nature Shaman winning on turn 5 consistently, that's not great. That's too early for Hearthstone. It's not too early for some games, but it's too early for Hearthstone. But I think, and we need to have ways that things are interactable because control is a very popular way to play. Like reactive play is a really popular way to play. And that used to be my favorite way to play. So I don't want to say...
You don't want to say that I'm wrong. Yeah.
But I do think we need some decks with some inevitability. Because I feel like part of how we got here was nothing can have inevitability except for through grindiness and armor.
Yeah.
Well, and I mean, there are decks with inevitability. There's Wheel of Death Warlock, but of course you're doing starships to gain an absurd amount of armor to or Ancient of Yore to keep yourself safe before then. And I think that's the other piece too, right? Is like Arcanite Defense Crystal is neutral, Ancient of Yore is neutral, and yeah, it then becomes this selecting thing of like, okay, what are the powerful things that we can pull from a class to work together with these neutrals, right? And so it means that we're seeing a lot of the same stuff, right? Wicked has gotten to the point of like, I have to play Hex, you know, or you know, it's just Ysera, Fyrak all over the place. And I feel like we strayed a bit in talking about some of the other things, but to me, the ultimate issue is not balance, is not any of that stuff, but just that like I want to be able to have a release where I look at the cards, look at the spoilers, and get excited. Which, to be clear, because I was optimistic and perhaps overly optimistic, right? I was excited about this.
Yeah. We were for all three of the last set, all of the last three sets.
We get excited, right? We want to be optimistic. You know, some people are being less optimistic, right? And then I want to, you know, it doesn't have to be something from the theory casting, but I definitely want to like end theory casting excited to play the new cards, and then have the first week end and be like, man, there's cool stuff. I want to keep trying the cool stuff and not, God, it feels like if I play new cards, I am sacrificing win rate, you know?
I think that's a good bringing full circle. And I do want to say, like, the rush idea on the Quest Paladin might be a way to do it. I don't want, like, just that there's two sides to the story. But in terms of, I think it makes sense to draw back to, I really hope that with the next expansion we can have, I think that the launch of a new expansion is ideally when we should have that most new change. Trying to throw a bomb in the state of the meta at this point is a lot harder.
Yeah, I get why they're not doing it, and we should talk about what they did do. But I think people were still hoping for like a, well, they haven't made anything like really hit for Quest. Surely they'll give us something, you know, after the Masters Tour or something, right? That to make Quest playable, and it feels instead like they have given up on this expansion because they're content, and at least the very engaged folks, the folks who were like holding out to get to play with their new cards, are like, wait, you're not gonna try? And they did try. They tried specifically on the mini set cards. So let's get to that.
Yeah. I mean, there's just like so much that you can do, and I do believe them. I've been saying for a while, like, you're not going to balance change your way out of this. Like, there's a fundamental design change that's going to have to happen, and maybe the next set's going to be like such a power. The third set of the year usually is a power spike, and maybe it's going to be such a power spike that, I mean, there is risk with that too, but ideally they can tone it down at rotation. Like, that's the problem that we get into, is that you have to is maintaining like a consistent power level such that you're able to make the new card shine while also not like boxing yourself into having to consistently one up yourself to the point where everything is over the top. And you know, it's a hard line to ride, and this is why I'm not a game designer, like, because I couldn't do it.
It'd be hard not to one up this set.
Well, yes, that's true.
But but also, if ever they were going to, you know, inject some power level, a walk through Hearthstone's nostalgic history, you know, would be that that moment, right?
Just you know, just bring back Q Block and you know, and Garrett Rogue, and we'll be all set. Yeah, that'll do it.
Baron's Priest and Wicked will be happy, and no one else will be, but Wicked will be.
I don't even know if you could play Baron's Priest right now with some of what's out there, but that's a different discussion. Anyway, all of this is to say, don't get your hopes up too much for what we're about to talk about in the actual card changes, because they're not really, like, basically what they're doing with these changes is taking an opportunity to improve some cards that probably could use it for people who are not playing as competitively, and there's not going to be a better time to do it because, you know, it's not going to hurt anything, right? So anyway, so the Kelos from the Egg of Kelos, this is the one that, you know, when it dies 5 times, it summons a 20/20. The 2020 now has taunt. That is a material change to that card because you could, I mean, generally by the time you're allowing that to die, you probably have some sort of an answer for it anyway, but at least you have to have an answer for it. You can't just ignore it on board and blow past.
I mean, I will say it does make a difference. I did face someone who was doing this in Warlock with Eternal Layover. I don't know what the win rate of that deck is in general, but they pulled it off against me.
Yeah.
And I would have won if they didn't have taunt, because I had been trying to kill them before they all came out, because Fire Rogue doesn't necessarily have a way to clear a bunch of 2020s that come out together, except for Fyrak being helpful. And they also had like other eggs with Reborn, so if I did AoE, I'd kill a different egg and get more 2020s. And I'd been hoping, well, I can just push through the damage before, and I would have if they didn't have taunt. So I do think it's a big change. I don't know that it's enough to like make this super meta outside of sort of off meta play, but it does make a big difference if you're trying to work with this egg. Like,
an egg was kind of the most exciting thing that people were like trying to make work sort of as a meme, and then we were like, oh, this is actually like all right, depending on the thing you're putting it in. Death Knight, you have to do a lot of work to make sure you have the corpse explosion and stuff, but Warlock has sort of felt like a promising place with Eliza and
they had Eliza also. That was very important. I tried to avoid killing Eliza, but then that's 4 damage to your face, so eventually I did have to kill Eliza.
There's only so much you could do that. Yeah.
And then they were just trading into everything, and
it's sort of like, how it's a mini game of like, how can you make the eggs relevant enough such that they are doing things that are reasonable, and then you get this payoff later on. So that's cool. The Mirex one,
Mirex
I don't think matters.
I mean, Mirex is just a bad card in general, and I don't think that changing the stats on it's going to be good.
Yeah.
But Mirex was when this is your hand in your hand. This is a 3/3 copy of the last minion your opponent played. Now it's a 3/4 copy of the last minion your opponent played.
Sure.
The problem with this is not the numbers in the corners. The problem with it are the words in the middle, and I don't think changing the numbers are going to substantially move this, but at least can trade a little bit more favorably. It's a spider tank at least, so
Yeah, it's the kind of thing where like, well, maybe it makes it just efficient enough that you like, if you can run it out on 3 reasonably, you sort of don't care, and like sometimes you get huge upside, sometimes just a little bit.
I mean, I'm happy for Rogue to get a bad legendary for once, so I'm fine for it staying bad. Yeah.
They used to have it all the time.
Yeah, well, not for a while. Anyway, Possessed Animancer is going from 6 mana to 5 mana. This is the 5 mana 2/2 with Death Rattle. Summon a random beast from your deck, give it lifesteal. Its buddy Asphyxiodon, which is basically what it's intended to be played with, which is the taunt at the end of your turn, deal 5 damage to a random enemy minion. This is going from a 6/10 to a 6/12. So making a bigger taunt that also comes out a little bit sooner. You have things like Eat the Imp in Warlock. The dev comment on this one is, we've seen players tapping into the potential of Possessed Animancer, and we're making it more efficient to use. Alongside that, we're also improving one of its favorite partners, Asphyxiodon. We wouldn't be Gigasaur if you tried using it with another beast item, which I appreciate the pun. So that's worth reading the dev comment for. But yeah, I mean, I said when we were looking at the cards that there may be something here.
Yes.
I don't know if we're there yet, or in April maybe we'll have something, but it's clearly it's. I mean, if it's not seeing play at 6/12, yeah. I mean 12 is a bigger number than 10. I ran the math. But yeah, it's
and it may just need the right meta, right? Like or like other stuff going on, right? I think presently the slower archetypes consuming Warlock just requires so many cards in Eternal Servitude and the Zerg package, and I keep saying that Eternal Layover, not Eternal Servitude. And
like I said, we priest pilled you into changing into a priest card.
Anyway, yeah, there's a bunch of cards that go into Warlock right now around Ancient of Yore and or Starships. But if there were a point where like those are gone, there's some aggro decks, then I feel like, well, this is very good, right? This feels cube luck-esque, and I think was designed in that way. Lackey at some point went from 5 to 6, so they just put this out at 6.
Yeah.
But I think the stuff paired with it was not quite the same thing as Void Lord and Doomguard, right? And there's no cooldown, of course, to revive them and bring them all back. So yeah, I think this is a good change that, if not meaningful now, I could totally see it mattering down the line.
Yeah. Yeah. Ritual of Life, which is the priest holy spell that discovers a 3-cost minion. It's now, instead of summoning a 2/2 copy of it, it's summoning a 2/3 copy of it. Cool. The problem with this is not so much the stats on the minion, it's the fact that when in the deck that you would want to play this in, which is the Quest Priest, you actually care about what's in what kinds of things are in your Deadpool for things like Spirit Singer Umbra, and I guess you play Rest in Peace in that deck also, and so
I think this is at least as much for if
oh no, you're playing Raza in that deck. Yeah.
If aggro gets in a good enough spot that we're playing aggro priest again, then this is much better for that. Like having a slightly more competitive stat line on 2, and then you also get another card on 3. Or if we ever get something that kind of wants a sort of like this makes it more competitive compared to Creature of Madness, because before it was just like sort of plainly worse than Creature of Madness unless you really needed that holy part. Now, like, you don't get a Dark Gift on the second half, but you do get a 2/3 instead of a 1/2 at the beginning, so it's more of a decision.
Yeah, I was playing this card a bunch when I was like, can I make a Firaak Priest? And it's a good card, right? I sort of was like, Resuscitate is really strong. I'll put in powerful 1s and 2s that I want to resurrect, and then the 3s are sort of sketch in terms of what you can baseline run, so I would just run this. And it's just mainly like wanting to have that consistent curve if you can help it. Sometimes you get really good hits, sometimes you get less good hits, but it gives you stuff to do on turn 2 and on turn 3, which is the sort of thing that people were doing with Creature of Madness. And in this case, you have a better turn 2 than they do.
But the Quest Priest wouldn't run it because it's running Raza the Resealed, and it wants to shuffle because it wants to shuffle because the copies of you get 4 copies of the quest reward in your Deadpool, and then Raza shuffles 5 things that died back into your deck. So you want to get 4 of those, and ideally like a Spirit Singer Umbra if you're really high rolling. And you don't want to have any other minions if you can help it, other than like Vol'jin, which I think you have to run in that deck maybe. But other than that, you're trying to run as few minions as possible because you always want those to get shuffled back in with Raza. So
I think they were not thinking of any deck in particular, just like this is the most powerful card in that Priest got from the mini set, right? I think that's true. And so
I think so.
Giving it a little nudge, right?
Yeah. Ankyliodon, which is the a beast for Hunter, is going from an 8-mana 7/7 to a 6-mana 7/5. This is a taunt, death rattle, summon 2 random 3-cost beasts. They attack random enemies. The health reduction is actually a buff on a death rattle minion when you want it to die. So it is actually, it looks like it's getting reduced in stats, but that's actually a good thing for this minion specifically, that you want to die and then summon the 3 drops that are going to attack. So, and this also is, they note in the dev comment, changing it to make it another card for Quest Hunter for the reward in particular, because it's a 6 that you can discover. So instead of an 8.
But also, you need 7 power stuff to complete the quest.
Yeah.
So having another one of those besides just the rush thing, I feel like.
Well, it was always 7 power.
Well, I know, but it cost 8 before, and now it's 6.
So now it costs 6, which is a big deal. Yeah. Long Neck Egg, which is a 0/2 for Druid. Used to say death rattle, summon a 1/2 beast, give your minions +1/+1. Now it says summon a 3/3 beast, give your minions +1/+1. So that's effectively, because it's getting the buff, it's going from a 2/3 to a 4/4, which is I mean, that's the same as Nerubian Egg, except with upside. So that's probably fine in a deck that wants it, which is probably a quest druidy type of deck. Or we've had token druids in the past, like not right now, but token druid has been a fairly, successful archetype over the years. If we're doing a retrospective of Hearthstone's history in the next set, maybe they're going back to that. Who knows? But that seems like that would make it a little bit easier to run a card like this in the decks that want it.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is the biggest change.
Yeah. Well, and we're not seeing anything with it at all right now, but if we do, like, this is now a strong card, right? In terms of, will it have the support? Probably not right now, maybe later. But it helps this card quite a bit, right? I think it makes this individual card is now not the problem.
Yeah, right. Like, if an aggro druid pops up, fairly certain this will be there, right?
Yeah. I mean, it seems like it's too good not to run in a deck like that. We just don't have a deck like that right now.
Like, its baseline is that it is Nerubian Egg.
Yeah, which is better than Nerubian Egg at home, which is what it was before. So.
Yeah, it was. We don't see Nerubian Egg in every deck, but in some decks it's strong. So yeah, this needed to be like at least as good as a Nerubian Egg, I think.
Costume Merchant which is the battle cry for Rogue. The battle cry: get a random mask from another class. Combo it costs 2 less, going from 1/3 to a 2/4. This card can have big boy stats. It's fine. Like, it's not hurting anybody for it to be a 2/4.
If this is the kind of card that appeals to you, congratulations. I don't think the masks are particularly good, but I don't think this was designed to be competitive. So fine.
Yeah. And then finally Tor Totem, which is the totem, the 0/3 totem, or it was the totem for a shaman that says at the end of your turn, get a random minion with multiple minion types, is going from a 2-mana 0/4 to a 1-mana 0/3. The dev comment on this one is, we found that players already complete the shaman quest fairly quickly, but we still wanted to give Tor Totem a small boost. Lowering its cost helps it contribute to quest completion while also enabling earlier minion generation to fuel the payoff once the quest is complete. Obviously, they are not talking about High Legend with this dev comment, but it is important to keep in mind that they are designing for everyone who plays the game. And, again, we both, speaking as the hosts and also as listeners of this podcast, are kind of a self-selecting sample size that is more engaged and more competitively focused than most. So at lower ranks, in casual games, Quest Shaman could be a perfectly reasonable deck that some people are having fun with, and if this makes it a little bit more fun for them, then there's no real harm there.
Yeah, and like, John Bray messed around with it, right? People tried to make it work. I do think cutting the mana cost in half, right, does mean, like, well, maybe you give it a shot. It means maybe sometimes you roll this out before even playing the quest, right? Don't worry about the totem proc, just like get it going, so you get maybe 2 things. Or if you're on the coin, right, you can play the quest and then coin this out. So it's more appealing.
And I think, having seen the Shaman quest occasionally, my experience, granted not with a huge sample size from opponents with it, but I have seen some opponents with it, and they do complete it pretty fast. I don't think the completion is usually their issue. It's like they really want to get multiple procs of it, so they want to find Shutter Block and do Shutter Block, or they need to kind of do a scuffed copy of it with, like, Cloud Serpent, and then they have to find that and play it first before they, like, getting the minions with different types is not the issue for Shaman Quest.
Yeah, it's that, like, it is hard to play the reward, and it is even harder because in order for the reward to be a true win condition, you have to Shutter Block it or get extra copies from the Dragon Elemental Cloud Serpent.
So, yeah.
It's now that it has Rush, it is easier to play the reward. But yeah,
but you still can't really tutor Shutter Block outside of, like, Fairy Tale Forest, which is
Talon is all you got.
Oh yeah,
and
Talon. I suppose you could do that too.
once upon a
Yeah.
time, that was okay.
Yeah.
Not anymore.
Yeah. Especially because he doesn't have any minion types, right? So like
Correct.
that's not really working in his favor because human is not a minion type yet, apparently. So we're waiting for that day. So that's it for the buffs. There's a bunch of battlegrounds changes, which is usual. We will leave that as an exercise to the listener to go look up those if you are interested in such things. The main bug fix that is relevant is Arena. There were a number of legendary minions, Arachnos. That is hard to say after talking about this balance patch for a while. Frostmourne and Barracuda didn't have any cards in their legendary buckets. Now they do, so they've been returned to the card pool in Arena. So that is something that you can look forward to if you are an Arena enjoyer. So that's pretty much the news, but we do have a major tournament, and we happen to have one of the casters on retainer for this podcast. So we're going to go talk about those for a little bit.
It's the grand tournament.
So we had, of course, the Summer Championships this past weekend, and it was surprisingly diverse, at least in terms of actual decks, right? If you take a look at the classes, you're like, oh, there's like 6 classes. But, one person had Protoss Priest, one person had Drunk Paladin, there were a couple of the Fyrek Death Knights as opposed to the Starship Death Knights, there were a couple of Starship Rogues, right? I mean, there was one full Starship lineup from Phil Feel, which was exactly what he brought to playoffs and used to qualify through playoffs. A couple of Nebula Shamans from Tansoku and someone who didn't make it out of groups, but I mentioned it earlier, but every archetype that was represented in the group stage made it through. So a lot of the baseline lineup of Starship DK, Alonius Druid, Fyrek Rogue, Quest Warlock sort of got culled. And actually, there was a decent amount of Mech Warrior, but only one of them made it out of groups. That was Tansoku. But it did draw a lot of bans, the Mech Warrior did. I feel like it was sort of tricky. People were trying to figure out, like, well, what do I bring if I go the Mech Warrior line? And that was kind of up in the air. But yeah, Quest Warlock, Fyrek Rogue, Starship DK, and Alonius Druid were the most represented throughout the entire event. And I think it was just sort of people's personal preference or like trying to figure something out, whether they came up with something outside of those 4, right? Because that's the thing, about tournaments versus ladder is like, well, your opponent gets a ban. And since if you sort of know what people are doing, you can try and focus in. So you saw some people trying to focus in on Alonius Druid a little bit. Some people trying to focus in on the Starship DKs a little bit. In terms of bringing the Warlocks with Wheel of Death, right? There was a couple of Starship Warlocks with Wheel of Death. And then Pocket Train, the absolute madman, brought Mill Warlock and Discover Hunter alongside Alonius Druid and Starship Rogue. I believe he was basically targeting the slow stuff, to some extent Starship DK, but I think he also sort of believed like, oh, there might be this sort of slower thing, sort of like Phil Feel's lineup, right, of all these Starship decks. I'll sort of target those, and then he ended up facing the harder matchups for him in the semis and the finals and just winning anyway because he's Pocket Train.
I told you we don't bet against him. Like, got me 5 packs. I'm happy with my decision.
Yep, same.
I mean, I guess also the Shaman. I do wonder if Tansoku thought that there's going to be more Mech Warrior in the pool than there was, because I would expect the reason you bring the Shaman is for access to Hex to be able to shut down something like a Mech Warrior. I mean, to the starships to a lesser extent too, because if you can Hex like one of the starship pieces, I suppose, because by the time you get to the starship out, it's too late. But if you can Hex like one of the starship pieces and not let it get recurred or whatever they happen to be doing, then sometimes that can kind of get you there. But Shaman and Hex in particular seems like it's there for Mech Warrior in particular, because if you can Hex the first testing dummy, then they're not doing things like playing Recommend Deckham. They're not able to play the get as much value out of the Umbra. They're not able to play as powerful of a boom. I mean, granted they have two of them, but ideally you just draw both your hexes, because you're drawing on the heart of the cards at that point. And I did hear some of your colleagues alluding to that fact that the reason people were bringing Shaman was just Hex. Like, the deck is reasonable, but the idea was just to have Hex available to be able to shut down some of those decks and just kind of sneak a free win here and there with that.
And also, Shutter Block Fire Rack, because that was a thing that happened.
Yeah.
That was a thing that did 64 damage.
Yeah.
Because that's what it does every time. Guaranteed.
Unless it fails to do 4, which yeah.
I actually had a situation yesterday where I needed it to do 4 damage on an empty board, and I was almost afraid to play it. I was like, what if I have the same situation? It did do 4. I was fine.
Yeah. I didn't talk about the placements, though. Of course, Pocket 1, Soirin got 2nd. So if you looked at the lineups and thought you knew who would win, you were wrong. If you looked at the players, you were right, at least for Pocket. Because Drunk Pally got 2nd. Phil and Tansoku, filling out 3rd and 4th. Phil with the full Starship lineup. Tansoku with the Nebula Shaman, Mech Warrior, Virak Rogue, and Quest Warlock. So really, really surprising stuff that actually filled out the top 4, as opposed to, you look at Banter, Gamer RVG, and Photon, all on Starship, DK, Outlonius Druid, Virak Rogue, Quest Warlock.
The Americas lineup, apparently. I mean, I guess because Australia's part of Americas, I guess, as far as the regions are concerned. So,
I mean, that is that was the level 1. These are the best decks lineup, right? Like,
yeah, that's like the nobody ever got fired for choosing IBM lineup, basically.
Yeah, there's something to be said for not overthinking it when you're making a lineup, but it is cool that some of the more unusual lineups made it through. There was a few points where the Drunk Paladin looked like it might be a problem for Soirin, but it made it through. He was, there was one time when it looked like, oh, maybe he's going to have a reverse sweep on the Drunk Paladin, but no, he got there. So, except for obviously in the final, lost to Pocket Train. But I don't remember exactly how that went. I don't think we lay that at Drunk Paladin's feet necessarily.
Yeah, a lot of times it took multiple tries, but you only need to win once. So,
do we know which group the? I mean, was it just Soirin, or was it?
It was just Soirin. Looks like, 50% win rate out of 4 games in groups, and then in top 8, the Paladin.
Top 8 was 100% win rate. So
no, it wasn't.
That's what, according to Battlefy, it is.
40%.
40%.
Oh no, it's 40% out of 5 games. Oh yeah, because the other ones were 0%. Yeah, that's I work with stats for a living. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you're seeing its win rate against Druid and Death Knight as 100%, but then it lost to Warrior, Rogue, and Warlock, right? Which, to be fair, is kind of like, that was his expectation, is that he would beat Druid, and or Death Knight, and probably lose to the other stuff.
I mean, that is the thing about Conquest. Like, you don't need to get every deck to win 100% of the time. You just need each deck to win once per match.
Yeah.
And sometimes you bring decks that are going to lose in certain matchups because they just need to win in one particular matchup, and then they're fine. So yeah, it is a little bit misleading when you look at win rates across decks in an environment like this, where the goal is not necessarily to have them win every game, but to win particular games, which is different than when you're looking at stats for ladder, where you do need to win every game, or your goal is to win every single game of a particular deck. mean, obviously you love it if you won every game with every deck, but you know that's not how you build your lineups in Conquest.
Yeah. And it looks like the Drunk Paladin, actually, he didn't have a chance to play it at all in the finals.
Pocket's a beast.
Yep. Pocket went 3-1.
Not biased at all. We got to interview him twice that day. Yeah. Hopefully we'll get to have him with us for last call, because it was fun casting with him. He's got some very good insights, being, you know, world champion. But yeah, we had something planned for explanations in terms of like taking a look at a couple of game breakdowns, matchup breakdowns from the MT, but given the time and us, you know, waxing about the dev comment, I think probably we will save that for next week, because we don't have particular plans for next week, and I want to be able to give those the time that they deserve, because just sneak peek, if you didn't see it, Pocket tempoed an owl. That's all you need to know. He tempoed an Aulonius. It did not win the game, right? Or sorry, it did not. He was not winning the game that turn, right?
It didn't win the game. He didn't win the game with the owl, but he did win the game.
Right.
Yeah.
But he played a 6/10 Aulonius on 7, and it was correct.
So yeah, we wanted to talk about a few unusual plays and why. So stay tuned for that. My favorite with Pocket tempoing the owl is that he like moused over it and then didn't, and then took his mouse off, and then got this like impish grin on his face. I was like, yeah, I'm gonna do it.
That's how I feel whenever I press a button on the soundboard, by the way. So
it is the same face. Yeah. My mom's cat is not very trainable, and whenever she's about to do, like, she knows what she's not supposed to do, and she does not care. So she'll get a look on her face like, I'm just gonna jump on the counter anyway. Because my mom's like, don't jump on the counter. She's like, what are you gonna do about it? I'm gonna call your bluff. You're gonna be nice to me. So I'm gonna jump on the counter anyway. And it's gonna be the correct decision. So yeah, tempoing the owl turned out to be correct. We're not gonna say you should usually tempo an owl, but sometimes you make plays like that if you're a really, really good player. So yeah.
Matchup recognition. But anyway, yeah, we will get to all that fun stuff next week. For now, we have many folks we'd like to thank. Check out our thanks section on the website at Concede.com, where you can also find our contact info, our show notes, and our Patreon information. You can monetarily support our show at patreon.com/CoinConcede. Follow us on Blue Sky at CoinConcede, write into our email at coinconcede@gmail.com. Join us every week live by following us on Twitch at twitch.coinconcede.com. Join our community chats in our Discord at discord.coinconcede.com. Subscribe to us on YouTube at youtube.com/@CoinConcede. And if you'd like some CC swag, head on over to our shop at shop.coinconcede.com. Once I have the new one up. Maybe I should just like take that out until it's ready.
But then you wouldn't have a weekly reminder that you need to do it.
That's true. That is fair. You just have to disclaim every time that like the shipping situation is not great for the current one, and so we're working on a new one. But yeah. CoinConcede, quick shout out to NY Kiwi for sub during the show. I am going to generally coin-concede to my mom, my mother-in-law, for watching my daughter while I was casting, because Rachel rescheduled something so that she was traveling. She was on vacation this weekend, and then we were like, oh god, the Masters Tour is also that weekend. I mean, we had fair enough warning, but still, like the fact that my mom was willing to watch Leah when I was like, I don't know when I'll be done, because sometimes we get done at 6:30 and sometimes we get done at 8:30. So yeah, it was a long weekend, but my grandparents were Leah's grandparents were able to take over. And yeah, it was good. I love casting, and I want to keep doing it. So, yeah. How about y'all? Coin concedes?
I will coin concede to play to chill for coin conceding to me on ladder yesterday. I believe it was yesterday. And also, I just want to say, great name. It reminded me that I should play to chill a little bit more often. So yeah, thank you for the coin concede.
Well, this is going to be a coin concede with a visual aid. So which is something I can do because I run the stream. So you're all my captives now. So about a year and a half ago, I was at a con called Arisia where I bought a pin of Bulbasaur, which is
What?
Bulbasaur with a top hat and a monocle and a mustache.
I feel like I remember this.
Yes. So I had no idea where it came from. It was like a pin off of a board that I bought. I think I bought their last one. So I am coin conceding to Jeffrey Sue because now I know who the artist is and I am now his biggest fan because when I was at Retro World on Saturday, there was a different booth that had Fuiko Couture. So, which is a Fuikoko with a top hat and a mustache, no monocle, because, we have limits. Fuikoko, you probably lose it or drop it. We understand. He's our special little boy. But, yeah, so that is now accompanying Bulbasaur on my bag, and I'm very happy to have it. And now I'm glad that I know who it is, so I can potentially order more and get more, because there's a whole collection. Like, he's got a whole bunch of them. This is Listonks, apparently, who's just like a pig with the stalks, with a ribbon that's going into like the stalks arrow. They're all delightful. So, and I just wanted to share that little bit with you. If you're listening on the podcast, I apologize. I'll put a link in the show notes to the store so you can go experience this stuff for yourself, because it is absolutely delightful. But until next time, keep calm and tempo owls at your own risk. And if you see us on ladder, coin concede.
Coin concede.
Coin concede.
All life must end. I yield for now. I concede. Well fought. I concede.
You win this one.
The victory is yours.
You have bested me.
I give up.
You win this one, friend. You win this